Okay, let's get the part that'll get me canceled out of the way first. Yes, I bought the Pokemon re-release everyone's mad at right now. No, I'm not particularly happy with having spent $20 on it. Yes, I think it is, for the most part, a lazy ROM dump and a pre-existing emulator. I think it actually uses the Switch Online GBA emulator, actually. That is not what this video is about. This is something that's been on my mind for quite some time, basically since the lead up to the Switch 2 launch alongside the Switch 2 launch. Nintendo has, for a long time, had a problem with leaving important information out of their announcements and marketing and just hoping the fans will get it. It's one of the big reasons the Wii U was the Wii U. But I think a lot of Nintendo fans don't seem to realize that they're still doing this, and it has pretty much sabotaged a lot of their projects. I admittedly hadn't really cognitively realized this was a problem during the Switch 1 era yet, so there aren't really many examples I can bring up from back then, but there's one big one that sticks out in my mind very clearly. Switch Sports. The Sportsmates, the new avatars in Switch Sports, caused a massive controversy, a temper tantrum even, because people assumed the Miis were completely out, not even in the game. Nintendo fans were furious. And then the game released, and Miis were kind of just there. They weren't really very well implemented, as you can see, but they were there. It still kind of sucked, but people would have been significantly less angry if Nintendo marketing had just been like, hey, if you don't like the Sportsmates, you can use your Mii. Just like old times. And technically we knew about this before release, because I think Mii's were, there was like a Mii in like the background of a Nintendo Direct clip or something. But that was probably by accident, and a lot of fans only found out when the game released. I think that's when I found out, actually. And that's not really acceptable, and a lot of people who probably otherwise would have bought Switch Sports didn't. I'm sure the game sold well anyway, because it's a Nintendo game and people are going to buy it anyway, but yeah, people were mad, and I think to the extent people were mad was a little wacky, but I can see the core of their argument, and if it didn't turn out to literally be untrue, I would have agreed with them. And like a lot of things, that is Nintendo's fault, not the fans. That was Nintendo's fault for basically not marketing their game properly. That was not the fans' fault. That was Nintendo's fault for not marketing their game properly. The entire Switch 2 launch was kind of an absolute disaster. I'm just going to focus on one thing here that could have been avoided. The absolute shitstorm of misinformation that permeated any and all discussion of the Switch 2. I'm not going to call out any specific claims because I don't want my home address to show up on Twitter.com, but there was a lot of bullshit that, quite frankly, was blatantly untrue and could be shot down with a simple, that's not how this works. But the thing is, this was also Nintendo's fault because they could have easily cleared the air with like 2 or 3 tweets on the like Nintendo of America Twitter account, and they actively chose not to do that. The console sold well anyway. I mean, I bought one, but you know, like, people were mad. And there were valid reasons to be mad. There are valid complaints about the Switch 2 that I do agree with. I'm not going to bring any of them up because I, again, don't want to end up on Twitter.com, but there were valid reasons to be upset. And the invalid ones were honestly also Nintendo's fault because, again, they could have cleared the air with like 2 or 3 tweets and actively chose not to. And that leads us to FireRed and LeafGreen. Let's sidestep the price. $20 is kind of objectively ridiculous for a 22-year-old GBA game. Let's ignore that. The eShop pages initially said the games were going to support Pokemon Home, which they then promptly removed, leading everyone to believe these games were not going to support Home at all. People also assumed the event tickets from the original games were not going to be included, and event Pokemon would be completely unobtainable in these new releases. Turns out, Nintendo was waiting until Pokemon Day to announce home support was coming later, and the event tickets, according to a Japanese speedrunner who beat the game in about 2.5 hours on launch day, they're just given to you after beating the Elite Four, at least in the Japanese version. I'm assuming the US version is the same, but they're just given to you after beating the Elite Four. Sorry for anyone who didn't want Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen spoilers for this re-release specifically in the year of our Lord 2026, but yeah, no, they're just given to you after beating the Elite Four, and you can get the event Pokemon like default. You can just get them. And you know, I could blame Nintendo fans for dooming about everything and assuming shit, but no, this is Nintendo's fault once again for just leaving out critical information about the game and just hoping people just understand and then being shocked when they don't. When the Switch 2 was announced, people who were mad about the price were making welcome back Wii U memes, and ultimately that's not what happened. The console's selling fine, but I don't think Nintendo's marketing team really ever left the mindset that caused the Wii U to fail as hard as it did. Like, they try to be cautious about being clear in their trailers. Too cautious. In fact, basically every Mario trailer these days sounds like a neurotypical teacher talking down to the autistic kid in class who's smarter than them and trying to get the kid to show their work in math class. But I don't think much has really changed, honestly. Like, they just made a console that's able to more clearly sell itself than the Wii U was. That's all that's changed. Maybe they don't make double Yoshi Explosion ads anymore, but I think they just made a console that's more able to clearly sell itself to people, and they just stumbled into it.